of NATO, without United States participating, could not secure Greenland. Only really China and the US could do it. Maybe Russia, maybe, but they're, that would maybe be too much of a stretch, even though they have a huge Arctic presence, and that is true. They just maybe don't have the resources because it is the world's largest island and it is very vulnerable.
Now, before we talk a little more about Greenland, let's give you some more on the story we broke a little earlier. Maria Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader, has been speaking in the last few minutes. She, of course, made a visit to the White House today. She's confirmed to Fox News that she presented President Trump with her Nobel Peace Prize medal.
I presented the President of the United States the medal of the Nobel Peace Prize, and I told him this, listen to this. 200 years ago, General Lafayette gave Simon Bolivar a medal with George Washington's face on it. Bolivar since then kept that medal for the rest of his life. Actually, when you see his portraits, you can see the medal there. And it was given by General Lafayette as a sign of the brotherhood between the United States, the people of the United States and the people of Venezuela in their fight for freedom against tyranny. And 200 years in history, the people of Bolivar are giving back to the heir of Washington a medal, in this case the medal of the Nobel Peace Prize, as a recognition for his unique commitment with our freedom.
That was Maria Corina Machado there, just explaining why she presented Donald Trump with her Nobel Peace Prize that was awarded a few months ago and, of course, is long sought after by Donald Trump. She met with the president today. Now, let's talk Greenland. And a small cohort of European troops has arrived in the territory in what's being described as a reconnaissance mission in the capital, Nuuk. Military personnel have been deployed by Germany, Sweden, Norway, Finland, the Netherlands and the UK as President Trump continues to push for the US to take ownership of Greenland. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has given an update on how the meetings between Danish and US officials went yesterday.
The meeting, it was a productive meeting. It was a good meeting, and in that meeting, the two sides agreed to really establish a working group of individuals who will continue to have technical talks on the acquisition of Greenland. Those talks will take place, I'm told, every 2 to 3 weeks. So this is a conversation the administration intends to keep having with the Danes and with the respected delegation from Greenland. But the president has made his priority quite clear. He wants the United States to acquire Greenland. He thinks it's in our best national security to do that.
OK, well, let's speak to the former US ambassador to Denmark, Carla Sands. Carla, good evening to you.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Do you think Donald Trump will get his way through diplomatic means or through force?
Well, I never preempt President Trump. He always keeps all his options on the table. But I mean, I heard as you were in the run up to this interview talking about European troops going to Greenland. That's probably more troops than Denmark had when they were so-called protecting Greenland. The whole time I was ambassador, they would have about 30 guys in the entire of Greenland and then 2 dog sled teams. And that was what they considered defense of Greenland.
Well, look, we know that there's reinforcement from NATO. We know that there are extra troops pledged. There is an effort to seriously ramp up some of the military protection in Greenland. That is the outcome of some of these points from Donald Trump. Some would say threats from Donald Trump to take Greenland because it's a matter of national security to him. If he was after making the territory more secure, he's already achieved it. He doesn't need to acquire it. There are already huge amounts of money, more than a few billion, heading to the territory in terms of reinforcement to help secure it. So that should be job done, shouldn't it?
Not even close, Kate. Unfortunately, Denmark has not the capacity to defend Greenland, even if they wanted to, and they don't want to, because in 2019, President Trump asked the Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, to put more investment into securing Greenland. She said, yes, I will. She committed $200 million, but she only spent $2 million of that, 1% of what she promised him, and it wasn't for defense of Greenland. And so if Denmark had an interest, even if they did, they wouldn't have the capability because they're just not a big economy and they don't have enough manpower. All of NATO,
but they've got NATO's help now. They've got.
If I could just finish,
yeah, go on.
All of NATO without United States participating could not secure Greenland. Only really China and the U.S. could do it. Maybe Russia, maybe, but that would maybe be too much of a stretch, even though they have a huge Arctic presence, and that is true. They just maybe don't have the resources because it is the world's largest island and it is very vulnerable.
Okay, well, look, there is extra money going to Greenland. It's not just from Denmark, by the way. NATO's supporting this. Plus, Germany, France, Sweden, Norway are going to help Denmark boost the number of aircraft, vessels and soldiers to defend Greenland's security. We're not just talking about an operation under Denmark, who, from what you've said, you sort of struggled to trust, to take at their word. They are also being helped by other European nations and by NATO as well. And that still does not reassure you. This is not just a Denmark-only operation.
Well, that's beside the point. Even if it was legal, the fact is that these NATO allies, and we're glad they're NATO allies, we need them to be strong and be able to defend their own territory. They're not even capable of defending their own territory. Maybe France, I'm not sure, without the United States. That's why President Trump pressed in his first term for all the NATO allies to up their military spending. After the Cold War ended, all of us, our country, spent less on our defense. But the European allies never geared up. They expected the American taxpayers and the American military to be their security. That's not fair. European countries are rich. They need to pay for their own defense. And President Trump pushed them, so they're doing better, but they're still far from being there. And I know they are committed to improving their military and being able to defend their own territory, which is Article 3 of the NATO Charter, which Denmark is in violation. They cannot defend their own territory. It's like owning a house you can't afford to own. You can't afford to take care of it and make the improvements. You have to sell it. That's just how the world works.
All right. Would you trust the judgment of Sweden in this when we're talking about Greenland's security? Could they be a reliable ally?
We love Sweden, but Sweden has to defend Sweden. That's Sweden's job. You see, every country under Article 3 has to be able to defend their own territory. Denmark couldn't even defend little Denmark, tiny Denmark, the size of New Jersey. When Hitler invaded, they collapsed in a few hours. Greenland is the world's largest island. It is 1/3 the size of the continental United States, and it has all that coastline and open seas. It's part of the GIUK gap, and it's part of the Golden Dome that President Trump is building for North America. Okay,
the reason why I asked that is there's been an interview with Sweden's defence minister. He's told The Telegraph today that Donald Trump is exaggerating the threat posed by Russian and Chinese ships to Greenland. He's the first senior NATO figure to cast doubts on what the US president has been saying this. He said, look, if you state that Greenland's flooded with Russian and Chinese vessels, that's an exaggeration, according to the assessments that we do for the region. Surely we have to entertain that Donald Trump may have overinflated the importance here to make it an easier transition for the US to acquire Greenland.
I'm sure this is a nice man, but they're spinning to try to stop President Trump. The Danish military analysis itself, written last year, said that China and Russia, with this no-holds-barred pact, is a threat to Greenland. It was their own analysis. So, Kate, I mean, they can say whatever they're going to say, but it's noise. The fact is President Trump is determined to secure North America, just like he's been working in Venezuela, Panama, talking to Canada, talking to Mexico. Greenland is part of North America, not part of Europe, and it's not part of the EU. They left the EU decades ago.
All right. Well, I should say, since Denmark made that assessment, they have pledged between 1.5 and 2 billion pounds to strengthen their Arctic military presence. And now we know that other European nations are involved as well. Look, there's a story out today. Experts have estimated that it would cost the US $700 billion to buy Greenland. Would Donald Trump reach into his pocket and pay that?
Well, that's just a story. I have no idea what numbers that may be discussed, or whether they're discussing a COFA, like a free association agreement, like Micronesia or Palau have, where you have your own government. I mean, the Greenlanders want to be free. They're going to go independent in the 21st century, just like Iceland went independent in the 20th century. They're leaving the kingdom. So everybody has to understand they don't want to be part of Denmark. They're leaving. So
Okay.
just understand that. So President Trump is saying, we're not going to let them end up with the big friend of China. Greenlanders have said to my face, we don't care who invests in our country, China, the United States. Money has no color.
All
They
right.
just want investment. They want development. And Denmark has never been able to and never tried. They've never bothered.
Okay, well, look, that's former US Ambassador to Denmark, Carla Sands. Thank you for being with us. Greenlanders, of course, are mixed in their reaction as to, yes, they welcome the investment, but do they welcome the acquisition of their territory by Donald Trump? That is a different conversation.